Hello there and welcome to PM Express. If you're giving up on the Ghana cedi, not too fast. There's at least some news to be excited about. That's because the currency, which recently was rated as one of the worst performing legal tenders around the world, is suddenly beginning to gain some marginal stability against the US dollar. For now, you need a little above some 9 Ghana cedi in exchange for just 1 US dollar. If you're not too enthused about this performance, just come along with me as I paint that picture to you in terms of how our cedi has been depreciating up until now. In fact, it's been one of the worst performances in recent history. But just tonight, we're learning of that great news that there's some marginal gain in terms of how the cedi is performing. But where did we start off from? Why is it a concern? And how do we even stabilize the gains that we're making tonight? Let's start off with the last 7 days, painting a picture to you of how the concerns have grown over the days in terms of calling on authority to deal with the depreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. We start off from the 23rd of August because this is a 7-day window that you have on the screen right now, giving you a sense of what has happened to the cedi at least in this month of August alone. So 9.9, that's when we had a lot of concern from the business community. Particularly, we've heard from the Ghana Union of Traders and some other industry players who were mounting pressure on government to try and act, at least to try and reduce the figures. When that was happening, over the period, at least we saw some deep in the cedi in terms of its fast rocketing, figures in terms of the rate. So we moved from 9.9, then shot up to 9.91, and then it dipped a bit on the 25th of August, where, of course, there was hope that once we had dipped to 9.89, that's where the trajectory was going to keep us in the downward spiral, where it would further go down, and then the business community will begin to have once more confidence in the Ghanaian economy. But that did not happen, because in the last 3 days, the story has been fascinating. Just look at it. 9.97 was where we were as at August 27, and then we dipped once more to 9.85 with the hope that things will turn around. Then all of a sudden, on the 29th of August, 1:10. That's where, of course, a lot of people were alarmed, because Guta had then issued a statement indicating that their worst fears was about to catch up on them. The fact that we're crossing that deadly 10 Ghana cedi mark in terms of just getting 1 US dollar. But today, there's good news. At least we're learning of a new development, 9.96. At least we've come down from that deadly zone where, of course, business would have been unbearable. And in fact, the far-reaching effects on the economy would not have been something good to write home about. So it's become a concern for many people, and that's why we're painting this 7-day picture to you, giving you a sense of how the cedi has been undulating. In fact, moving within the range of the 9s, shooting up to 10, and then back to 9.96 with the hope and aim that indeed, if we do well, we'll be able to consolidate the gains. But what are some of the factors accounting for this? We do know that as a nation, our expenditure is far exceeding how much we're raking in as a country. And this is a trajectory giving you a sense of how we've been dependent on the Eurobond markets, the external market, just to try and borrow and shore up our revenue in order to meet our expenditure. So the trajectory from 2013 gives us a sense that clearly, if you're talking about how dependent we've been on that Forex, this is the timeline for you. In 2013, we're dependent on about $1 billion. That remained constant all throughout to 2016, where, of course, our reliance had dipped a bit. Probably some would say this is attributed to some of the conditionalities on which we were at the time. Fast forward into 2018, that number doubled. And, of course, we shot up to our dependency on the market to the tune of some 2 billion. And then it went up further in 2019, and the story is the same for 2020. For 2021, an astronomical hike in our dependence on the Eurobond market, just a little over 3 billion in terms of the dependence rate. And that's how we used to sustain our expenditure. But for now, there's a crucial need for that funding again. But the market is close to us. So 2022, there's no hope that at least we'll be able to get some funding from the Eurobond market simply because we've been shut out. We've been downgraded by almost all the top-notch ratings agencies, and that's where we are today as a nation. And of course, what we've done as a nation is to then move into our strategic reserves, our foreign reserve, and it's been depleting all throughout the first half of the year. Right from January, 9.8 billion, we've moved about some 2 billion down to the first half of the year, which is June 2022. We're being rated somewhere around 7.7 billion. So if we had 9, we had cut down by some 2 billion, simply because we're in that, of course, on the run, trying as much as possible to go in for the hard cash in terms of the forex, just to show up our expenditure. And that's why we're where we are today in June, with some 7.7 billion in terms of the depletion of our foreign reserves. But government is still expecting that some bailout will come out from the talks with the IMF. That funding will be crucial because now that we've been shut out from the market, at least we're expecting that between 1 to 3 billion is what we're expecting from the International Monetary Fund. So if that's the case, that we get all of the funding from the IMF, then of course we know that our reliance on the Eurobond market, we found a perfect alternative to that. But that may not happen because we're not certain and we can't bank all of our hopes on the International Monetary Fund talks and whatever it is that the IMF would give us, we're not too sure. But we know that it's between the range of 1 to 3 billion. For now, this has been checked, and just look at that green there, indicating that at least we have receipt of this, of course, show up in revenue, 750 million US dollars. At least experts say it's partly the reason why we are seeing what we're experiencing today, where the cedi is beginning to appreciate a bit. But just hold on, because there's also another liquidity that government is expecting, or the nation is expecting, as you may want to put it out there, a joint, of course, arrangement within our domestic market as well, amounting to some 250 million US dollars. That's the amount that even the minority is questioning because they have some problems with the arrangement and some of the insurance packages surrounding this 250 million US dollars. So that's not accessible to us right now because it's in the red zone, clearly indicating that government may not be getting this funding. But for now, what we have is the 750, and we're hoping that by the first quarter of next year, we'll have that IMF cash coming. But we're not too sure of the amount. If you compute all of this together, we're expecting in all about some 5.5 billion US dollars. That'll be far in excess of our deficit, which is ranging about 40 billion in terms of Ghana cedi, or 4 billion in terms of the US dollar. So that's the picture, telling you how crucial it is that government is in need of liquidity. And beyond this as well, there is a concern about what's also draining the market. There's the issue about regulation, because the Bank of Ghana, supervising the market, has detected already some of the faults and reasons for which we're experiencing the fast depreciating rate of the cedi. And part of it is being blamed on the black market. So enough flow is coming through from the central bank, and yet when it comes into the reserve, the belief is that the black market is, of course, sabotaging what we have here. And so there's some leakage going through the market and creating the problem where we are today. And that's why many have called for the strict enforcement of this law. Take a look at it. The regulation is, in fact, enjoining all of us that once you're going in to transact in forex, that's foreign, whichever foreign account or, foreign currency you want to trade or exchange here in Ghana, you must follow these rules. First of all, you must carry the national ID so that, of course, we're able to track you. And in fact, if you're a business, you cannot deal in forex unless you have the requisite license. That has not been enforced as much as we would expect from the central bank. And it's part of the problems that many expect are citing tonight. We'll get into the conversations. But beyond that, a person who also contravenes this law or contravenes the laws in terms of acquiring necessary license in dealing in forex, of course, there's a penalty that is obviously awaiting you as well. And we do know that, of course, you must have the nationality. You must be a Ghanaian as part of the requirement and eligibility for you to trade in Forex. All of these things, arguably, are not being adhered to. And it's part of the reasons why we're having this great conversation about where we are today, appreciating marginally. And if we are doing so, is this worth celebrating? And how do we put in place strict measures to consolidate our gains? I'll tell you about my guest shortly, but you're welcome to PM Express. Welcome once again to PM Express. If you haven't heard by now, we need to tell you about it. The cedi has gained some marginal stability against the US dollar. But of course, for those of you who are not so familiar with the science of it, we'll break it all down for you. And to find out ways by which we could, of course, consolidate the gains, let me tell you about my guest. Clement Boateng is Vice President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. In fact, they are raising concerns about the fast depreciating rate of the cedi. So we'll gauge their concerns and the mood of the business community shortly. Courage Boti is currency and also an economic analyst helping us tonight with a discussion. And Dr. Said Boachi is a senior research fellow, Institute for Fiscal Studies. And of course, we do have Yao Apia Latte, who's a financial advisor, partner also at Deloitte Ghana. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time here on PM Express. Dr. Said, let me start off with you. Some have described the marginal gain as a flash in the pan. For you at IFS, what do you see as the reasons accounting for this marginal gain in the value of the cedi?
Of course, the value of cedi is a matter of demand and supply. Supply was short because of the fact that the capital and financial account of the balance of payment has gone negative. And that is the major source of foreign exchange flow because the current account is virtually not so significant in this country. So what is taking place in the capital and financial account, that is what is significant. But it has gone negative. The reason is that because of the government fiscal management, that earned the country that bad rating at the start of the year. The country was unable to go in for, Eurobonds. At the same time, there have been capital flight, which had affected foreign exchange inflow. And because of that, the cedi was depreciating because the inflows was limited. And of course, the Bank of Ghana was finding it difficult to be aggressively intervene in the sense that without so much inflow, if the Bank of Ghana decided to use the limited available reserve to intervene, the Bank of Ghana will render itself powerless in the future. So they were being cautious as to how aggressive to intervene. And with the inflow of the 750 million, it is helping with the supply side. And of course, it is also killing the speculative component of foreign exchange demand. That is what is helping us to see this stability in the short term.
The last 7 days, very undulating. What's your outlook looking like?
The outlook is that this 750 is still so limited. It is giving us a breathing space. In the long term, if the government finances, that is creating the hole in the capital and financial account through the country's inability to borrow from the Eurobond and foreign investors withdrawing their funds, which depends upon the government's ability to effectively manage the country's finances. If the fiscal authorities are unable to put their finances in order, then what you just saw for the first 7 months of the year will repeat. But it is good that we have had a breathing space now, and the fiscal authorities have to double up. And the negotiation that is taking place with the IMF, you have to double up and get a deal so that government finances could improve, which will help with the capital and financial account to get in some inflow, or to get in some inflow because the country finance will improve and the government can go back to borrow. Of course, that is not a good solution in the long term. We can talk about long-term solution, but in the short to the medium term, if the government is able to get footing and be able to continue to borrow and also stop the drain through foreign investors repatriating their profits. if there's improvement in the fiscal operation, that will help. That is the medium-term solution. But in the long term, the current account has to be effectual. And let us try to listen to this analysis very well. You see, for the past few years, the country has been declaring positive balance of merchandise trade balance. They have been positive. There have been surplus. The country has been generating surplus in the merchandise trade account. Nevertheless, this is not being effectual. It is not helping the country so much in getting in foreign inflows. Why am I saying this? If you look at the current, the merchandise trade account, there are three major commodities in there. Number one is gold. Number two is cocoa. Number three is oil. You see, the country gets every grain of cocoa you sell, the dollars involved or the foreign currency involved, we get it back. Nevertheless, for the cocoa and gold, there's a very big problem. In fact, cocoa and gold, for instance, in the first half of this year, constituted about 65% of our mercantile trade exports. Nevertheless, the country gets so limited fraction out of it. This is a very big portion of our exports, 65%
right,
of our exports. But what the country gets from it is so limited. And for that matter, the exports are not contributing much to support the city. And that's why at IFS we have been calling. Of course, the government has to do something for Ghana to be able to take control of our gold exports and our oil exports. Other than that, what we call the merchandise trade account, that is supposed to bring in foreign currency, is not going to be useful. So realize that the surplus is increasing and increasing, but it is not helping us in any way. What is taking place in the capital and financial accounts is what is useful.
In fact, Doc, these are very interesting points you're raising, and this conversation is just about starting. The two sectors you're pointing to, one of them falls within the extractive sector. Guta believes that that's one of the juiciest parts of our economy, and yet it's being dominated by foreigners. So it's part of the reasons for which we're experiencing that fast free fall.
Yes, that's the reason.
Right. You also agree.
Hello?
You agree with that?
That?
The position of Guta on the fact that the extractive sector has been captured by foreigners.
Yes. So you export and the foreign exchange do not return to the country. They are kept as returns by the private actors, particularly the foreigners. And that is our biggest problem in the long term managing the city. So the government has been managing the city through the capital and financial accounts. But that one is through borrowing, through debt, which is not sustainable in the long term. In fact, when this government was claiming that they were stabilizing the city, it was through inflows, borrowing, through the capital and financial account. And I warned that a time was coming, the country's debt was going to be downgraded, and it would put a stop to that inflow, and it will have there will be a very big shock in terms of exchange rate depreciation.
Okay.
And that is exactly what has happened. Because you cannot just continue to borrow through the capital and financial account to stabilize the city, there's a problem. And then meanwhile, the country's exports, only limited proportion, flow back because they are controlled by foreigners.
And in fact, we're learning that alternatives are being explored. The Afri-Exim is already hitting our account, $750 million US. Courage, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I've already said it. My take is that, yes, it is providing us with briefing space.
Yes, Doc, I was just asking you to hold on. Let me bring in Courage Boti at this point. Courage also, seeking your thoughts on the 750 million, which has already hit our account.
Well, a very good evening to your listeners. Let me just start by saying that I work for GCP Capital, and my bosses will not be happy not introducing me as such. That said, yes, the 750 million and by extension, the many other inflows we are expecting are very necessary short-term interventions needed to stabilize the city. but by no means a solution to the problem we have, and needs no celebration at this point in time. I am aligned with Dr. Said on most of the things he said as the root cause of the cedi, except to add that, yes, the age-old problems exist. The age-old problems of raw material export, the age-old problem of no value addition, the age-old problem of dominance of foreigners in the extractive sectors, they have been with us since the ages, really. And in 2017, 2018, 2019, where we recorded low depreciation rate. And in fact, in 2020, even in COVID year, we had depreciation less than 5% of the cedi. These problems were still with us, really. And so the current situation, even if those problems are contributing factors, it's not largely due to those issues, really. I believe it's about the sentiment in the market and rightly reflected in the capital account deficit that we are seeing. And it's exposing really the ways we have managed the cedi over time. And these vulnerabilities are coming out to the fore now. What have we done since 2017 when this current government came into power? If you remember, I think in April 2017, we did some domestic bond issuance, a sizable one. Of course, it became problematic. There were talks of Trevor Trafgan and a few others. We raised a lot of, because the inflows were in dollars, really. They came in and supported the reserve. We managed the cedi through 2017. 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, we went to the Eurobond market between 2 and 3 billion cedis at the start of each year. Now, all of these come to show up the reserve and positioning as people who have strong backing, at least in terms of reserve. And it's on the back of that the Bank of Ghana introduced what you call the forward FX auctions that supported the cedi all through. 2022, the story changed, sentiments changed, and there were two key factors in here. September, we all saw that we were experiencing signs of fiscal stress that required that the 2022 budget exercise some restraint. We cut back on spending. We tried to do that on paper, but the revenue projections were just too good to be believed. The market was spooked, and we saw the reactions, de-investment, the reason we saw so much depreciation in the first quarter of the year. Then we got some inflows, we got some news of an IMF engagement with IMF late in the third quarter that tried to reverse those signs a bit and stabilize the cedi. But in this moment, we did a half-year review, particularly when we have announced severally that we've cut discretionary spending by some 30%. It turned out that half year, we did not cut back on expenditure at all. Indeed, we exceeded the expenditure target for half year. And surprisingly, or even more surprisingly, we are running 1.8, almost 2 billion more deficit than we planned for the year originally.
Right.
When already your financials are not performing, your fiscal position is precarious, your debt is at a level that is deemed unsustainable. These things will sustain the pressure. And so besides the age-old problems.
Yeah, but Courage is as though government is helpless in this case, knowing so well the times in which we find ourselves. A lot of the expenditure has gone into recurrent spending, simply because of where we find ourselves. COVID-19 staring us in the face, and of course the vagaries of the Russian-Ukraine war. It's as though these are tough times for the government, and they're helpless in terms of just keeping up with the spending.
Admittedly so, but what you would do as a normal spending unit is that when you do extraordinary expenditure due to circumstances beyond your control, I mean, I think the normal norm would be that when things stabilize a bit, you try to cut back to keep the ship afloat. I think that is what every rational spending unit would do. That is all you would do in your house. If you borrowed to take care of some exceptional spending, it might mean that you cut back on your spending subsequently to contain that. But if the posturing and the market carried us along during those times, they understood we need to spend on the financial sector. They understood we need to resolve the energy problems. They understood we need to deal with COVID. And the president will rise that they know how to revive the economy, but not human lives. But after that episode, the natural thing will be that you exercise some restraint. But unfortunately, government hasn't shown that commitment in 2022. That is what spooked investors. That is why we saw 1.8 or so billion deficit on the capital account, when naturally 2017, 2018, 2019, We've seen surpluses on that capital account, really. And so we've used a model that has not been sustainable and is being exposed now. We can inject as much liquidity as we want. Of course, beside the 750 million, there is a 1.3 billion or so in cocoa loan that is under negotiations now and will come through soon. But all of these 2 billion, when you bring them in and you still keep the posturing of this excess expenditure and less expenditure restraint, what you are doing is that you would just bring in these monies to feed the demand on the market, some of them very frivolous. And in no time, give yourself 4 or 5 months, this 2 billion will be gone. And already you are going into or planning to go into IMF program that will require strict restraint from you.
Yeah, but
if you are not showing signs of discipline
argument,
at this moment,
right,
your negotiations with IMF will be much tougher
but
than
Courage, regardless, the argument has been made that there will be a total bailout regardless. We'll have the access to the funds, and then that will solve all of our problems.
It's not a solution, unfortunately. When we have all of these resources, even add 3 billion from IMF to it, if we do not do restraint, we do not carry the market along, there are still a lot of foreign investor interest in our local bonds. And we still have a lot of external debt obligations to service. You still need a market along to even refinance some of these maturing debts. I mean, imagine if we had Eurobond about 2 billion, 3 billion maturing this year. How will we be able to finance it? You will need to roll it over. If you have to pay it down, like happened on Monday where the auction failed to attract enough and you need to pay off these investors to avoid default, where are we going to the hard currency to do these, given our limited reserve position and the vulnerabilities there are? You still need to carry the market along. And that is why I feel working on investor sentiment, getting the market along is the most important thing at this stage rather than liquidity injections. Don't get me wrong. We need the injections to stabilize the cedi. And it's good that we've gotten some 750 million. There is some stability now. I mean, I wouldn't even call it stability because it's too short a time. It's just about 2 or 3 days of data, really, that is showing signs of some correction. I do not even expect this correction to go much deeper than it is now, really. cedi will stabilize around the current levels, but until the reserve or the improvements we've seen in liquidity can last. Once we've depleted them, we go back to default setting, really. And we are having the festive season ahead of us where the utility demand can actually pose some pressure, some more pressure, really. So we are not out of the woods, and 2 billion or 3 billion injection would not be the solution. We still would have to do the hard stuff, which unfortunately now, at this moment, there are no clear signs of.
In fact, since you're talking about the UTAN, those in the business community, GUTA, they've been alarmed at the figures. I want to bring in Mr. Boateng at this point because that deadly mark of 10 ceded to a dollar has been crossed, Mr. Boateng, and now we're witnessing some appreciation of the cedi. Marginal one. Of course, the experts are saying we don't expect this to last for long. So as the business community, what are the options for you now?
Yeah, good evening to your viewers, and thank you for having me. Yeah, if you could recall when we issued our press release sometime 2 weeks ago, we predicted that because we are about entering the festive season where imports was going to be on the higher side, we think it wouldn't be all that long that we will reach the 10 cedi to the dollar mark. So we were not surprised when actually that happened. And that is the more reason why we thought where we were going wasn't the best. And so therefore, government should act quickly, to save the situation. And that's the more reason why we then came out with our second press conference, which we threatened that we were going to embark on closure of shops. And we thought that aspect, could then put a lot more pressure on government, to act quickly to salvage the situation. So we thought what we did really did the trick. And if government was relaxing in bringing in the Afri Exim loan, government should now quicken their act so that the money could come as soon as possible.
Yeah,
we are aware
that has been confirmed, $270 million by the Deputy Finance Minister.
Yes.
In fact, indicating to us that we've taken receipt of that amount. The rest is what we've been shut out from. In fact, the hopes on the IMF and the fact that it will come this year would not materialize, because sources are indicating to us that that would have to happen in the first quarter of next year. So tough times ahead, and I'm sorry for saying that for you, the businesses. But for now, you are pointing out that you have some options available to you. I'll just take you back to the earlier statement your president released, talking about the fact that some of the options available to you at the time was to either hoard the goods, wait for the market to stabilize, and then you begin to release into the market. But knowing that demand will be on the rise during the Christmas period is something that's really stifling the market, correct?
Yes, I was making a point, but
Yes.
I think you interjected me. What I was saying was that we heard of this Afri-Exim loan almost about a month ago, but then it wasn't coming. So I would say our action, what we did, then put a lot of pressure on government to quicken the process so that we could get the money in as soon as possible, and that has happened, so that they have injected that money into the system.
Yes, I appreciate that fact, but I'm talking about the options now for you as businesses.
Yes, the option, the option now, for the option for the government now, especially that of the central bank. Once this money has been injected into the system, it is the responsibility of the regulator. That's the central bank, to monitor, and not the central bank alone. Guta, we are also going to monitor and see the way these monies are going to be dispersed, because oftentimes when injection is done, the money goes, to the wrong places. And if you go to maybe this black market and you want money, you will see that that money will have a band of the central bank. How did the money get to those black market people? So once this money has been injected into the system, and then Bank of Ghana is releasing this money to the banks, to serve the business community and those who need it, or either import or otherwise, Bank of Ghana should make sure that their monitoring system and their regulating activities, should come into play, so that this money, will serve the purpose for which it was, injected into the system. We all know that this money is just a drop in the ocean, but fine, it has come somehow to, stabilize the situation a bit. And if Bank of Ghana don't put in measures to check and regulate the flow of this money will not serve the purpose that
and
we all...
in fact, I recall vividly the fact that you were calling for the reconstitution of the Forex Committee. That has not materialized, and yet all we have is that you're now members of a committee that's been set up by the Council of State or government. I stand to be corrected on that point, just to look into some of these matters. How far with the negotiations?
Yes, as you are all aware, when we met the Council of State, there was a joint committee which, was set up to see the grievances that we have put out there as a result of a press conference that we did. So that committee has been formed, and we had our first sitting yesterday. And at the end of the sitting, what came out was that we are going to invite governmental agencies who are concerned to these grievances, and then we will sit down and then discuss, the issues one by one. Because if you could recall, in our press release, we called for a stakeholder engagement, and we thought, government could do that immediately. Government didn't do it, and then we threatened to go on demonstration. Now we have got that stakeholder engagement. So, like I'm telling you, we did our first meeting yesterday, and then our grievances, has been laid to the Council of State. And so the various governmental agencies who are responsible for the grievances that we put out there, we'll be meeting them as and when the Council of States inform us. But even just this evening, I've been informed that we will meet first governmental agency, to have deliberations on the issues on Monday. So we are in progress, and we think some of the solutions that we have proffered, if government takes it and implements it, it will go a long way to help us in this situation that we often find ourselves.
Okay then, Clement. There's one more issue about foreign intervention into our market, but I'll come to you for you to address that for me. Let me also bring in Yao. Yao, the point about where to tie the knots is of utmost concern to all of us. So at least we'll know and have a sense of when and how we could consolidate the gains we're making with the CD now. For you, should it be about policy measures or allowing the market to redress itself?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to you. I hope I'm audible.
Loud and clear.
Yes. So I think the proposal for government, and we've always hammered this, is that we should move away from the traditional short-term means of addressing our foreign exchange issues. So I know that other panelists may have mentioned that if you look at historically how we always address our foreign exchange issue, it has been the cocoa syndication, it's been the Eurobond, and then pumping forex into the market. These three means of addressing our foreign exchange issues are short-term. They cannot outlive, let's say, a year or two. We have some windfall that we should take advantage of. And a very good example I can give is that when we read the 2022 budget last year, the oil price per barrel, as we speak, it's over $100 per barrel. We are projected to lift about 58 million barrels. So if you look at it, the net effect is that out of the 58 million barrels, if you lift it, you have additional windfall of $2 billion. So $2 billion as a result of increase in oil price, something that we take advantage of. So we should get back to our Jubilee partners, ensure that we increase production in our oil field. So we take advantage of what's happening in the world market. We can't have the situation where there's COVID, there's Russia, Ukraine, and we take the adverse effects. We should also take the benefits that comes with having international crisis. And the benefit that we are seeing now is oil prices are high, and we should take advantage of it and get that windfall. The second thing is that we are in negotiation with IMF. We should restructure our debts. The first quarter of the year, government spent about 10.6 billion paying interest alone. So if you do that evenly, it means that every quarter we spend about $1 billion paying interest, not principal, interest alone. If we restructure our debts, we will reduce our interest payments, because if every quarter you are spending $1 billion paying interest, and you reduce that to about 800,000 or 500,000, $500 million, you save a lot of money. Because you are spending $1 billion every quarter paying interest alone. That's a lot of cash outflow. And the inflow that's coming is in the form of debt. We are excited about after exit, but after exit is not a grant, it's a loan. Where are our grants? Where are the grants that we used to get in the past? Who are those responsible for mobilizing grants? We say that we have gone out of lower middle income because we don't have certain facilities. No. Kenya still has significant components of their inflows in grants. Why are they getting it? It's because they have a structure, a system in place that helps them to mobilize grants. We also heard of green fund or green financing that government announced. We have not heard anything about the green financing. There's an opportunity to ensure that we have some green infrastructure projects that will get the benefit of green financing. Green financing are cheaper than Euro bonds. And so just as we are looking for concessionary loans, we should also look for green financing. And I think all these measures, so taking advantage of our oil price increases and getting together with our Jubilee partners to increase oil production as one, to restructuring our debt, taking advantage of our negotiating with IMF and restructuring our debt to ensure that we reduce our interest payments, because the interest payment is having a toll on government. It is a significant burden, paying $10.6 billion every quarter, 10.6 billion Ghana every quarter, almost to say $1 billion every quarter on interest alone. And then the last is that we should just take advantage of what's happening in the world market. If gold prices are high, we buy gold. And I think the Bank of Ghana measure or policy to buy gold laudable, but we should ensure that we are selling the gold at a time when gold
Right.
prices are high. If
And
we
since you're
allow
talking, and since you're talking about the central bank itself, its monitoring and surveillance mechanism has come into question. The fact that we're allowing the black market to thrive, it's part of the concerns of some other experts who say, well, if you're not checking that, whatever injection it is that you're doing into the market will not yield any positive result.
yes, so I think we are in a free market economy. So that is something that we would allow to go. The thing is that government itself should have a means of controlling forex influence and all the measures that are outlined. So if we let's increase our crude oil lifting and we sell more, we get a lot of forex reserve because most countries are using the USD as their reserve currency. And given that US dollar is the most expensive currency in the world now, everybody is buying the USD. So if we find a way of increasing our reserve of US dollars, that will help us. Because the forex market will continue to do all that they are doing. But what we need to do is what we have control over. And what we have control over is how much dollars we get through our crude oil lifting, sale of gold, and the likes.
And for you, should it be more or less?
More or less of
The dollars, I guess, because you're saying let's control it.
let's control. So I think we should be able to control what goes to the market. I think pushing dollars into the market, it's not sustainable. And I wouldn't advise that we use that as a policy in the long term. The way to do that is to have reserves. Because the problem is that if repatriation of profits is happening, as has happened in the first quarter and second quarter of the year, we have a lot of repatriation of profits, and our foreign investors have repatriated their profits. That is and that's having a toll on government because now you have to find dollars to increase the reserves. So the forex market will continue to do what they are doing because there's repatriation of profit. But if you're able to show up and have a lot of reserve, then the fear around repatriation of profit will be a thing of the past. And if we improve investor confidence, because the repatriation of profits is part of the problem that we are having now.
Okay.
Because a lot of investors are.
Let me also take the thoughts of Dr. Said on this, the issue about speculation on the market. And Doc, the point about where we are today, the fact that the Afroism has set into the market, obviously triggering some speculation. And the belief is that would make more and more persons surrender whatever, of course, dollars it is that they are hoarding. Do you feel that speculation could come in, set in at this point, and further, of course, aid the gains that the city is making?
Of course, speculators thrive when there is a limited supply, demand exceeds supply. Then they expect that the price is going to go up. Then they begin to bid up the price themselves, like prophecy coming true. So as far as, the shortage of supply of a foreign currency, speculators will definitely thrive. And they are waiting to see if this 750 will have stabilized in the long term. Then it means if they continue to buy and hold, they will be incurring loss. But if the moment they see that shortage is being created, then of course they will, they will hit hard and they will help push the price of the foreign currencies up. But before I end, my colleague was saying the government has to just correct the market sentiment and we get back to normal. And the fact is that getting back to normal is going to be very difficult. He was also arguing that the extractive sector has been in the hands of the foreigners for quite some time, but in the 2017, 2018, 2019, we didn't see this kind of depreciation. Of course, we didn't, because the government was doing something that it was not supposed to be doing, and we were warning against. The government was basically resorting to borrowing from the Eurobond, which was not sustainable. And the government was doing that because we are not getting so much inflow from our exports. So we warned that there was going to be a crash. Like, the businessman was analyzing. The country takes about 70% of all the revenues it collects to settle debt. Debt repayment, including amortization and interest. This is just not sustainable. And, the rating agencies realized that this was not stopping and it was increasing. with increased borrowing. And that's why they downgraded our credit. So about 2-3 years ago, even though there was stability, I in particular was saying it was just being artificially manipulated through continuous borrowing, and there was going to be a crash. So thinking that you can get back to normal with market correction itself is not going to be easy. We have to have a very strong source of foreign exchange inflow other than borrowing. And in the meantime, what you can do is to fix management, the ownership situation of our gold and our oil. That is the source. After all, in the past, you used to declare trade deficit. Now you have been declaring trade surpluses. Nevertheless, the cedi is not being helped because these surpluses don't come to the coffers of the government, to Bank of Ghana to help us stabilize the cedi. So that in the long term, that is what we need. Of course, people talk about the government investing in agriculture, in industry. You have to have been able to fix your finances before you can get money to be able to invest in this. Meanwhile, debt service is killing the country. The revenues are being used to service the debt. And Bank of Ghana, for instance, about 2 years ago, kept on warning the government. The Eurobonds we were borrowing were being used to stabilize the cedi, and it was not sustainable. We were also saying that. So what I'm saying and repeating is that, yes, the government can help, straighten up the black market to reduce speculation and others. But at the end of the day, you need sound sources of supply of foreign currency that will be able to help you feed your demand.
Yeah.
And at this stage, the going to the Eurobond is just not sustainable. So market sentiment cannot be corrected because your debt service expenditure is just consuming everything. So you need to get fixed the ownership.
Too late for us, I guess, but we'll still be monitoring the developments. Courage, let me come to you. In fact, they hope that, of course, this government will push through its agenda of transforming us from an import-reliant country to one that is centered on production. Will fail to yield some, of course, results, at least knowing that for now, government will be restricted by the IMF conditionalities, and we may not be able to see through some of the long-term vision of the president, including the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda, which feeds into trying to shift us from that reliance on some of these traditional markets. For you, how do you see us circumventing that space in which we're about to find ourselves, where we'll be restricted by conditionalities and other factors from the International Monetary Fund?
Well, it's said that, if your sickness is the same, you keep taking the same medicine. And that is the point I think I was alluding to earlier. I do not think I'm necessarily saying anything different from Dr. Seed. I guess probably he didn't understand what I was trying to say, or he didn't get me properly. But really, we are saying the same things that, look, the things we did in the past, how we managed the effects in the past is what has brought us to where we are. I cited the borrowings in the past as the sources of effects that help sustain the currency at the levels we saw them. And the fact that it is the change in sentiment and the reaction to the government's fiscal positioning, that is the reason why we are seeing the reversal in the capital account this today, and then the reason we are seeing the level of depreciation. So yes, those issues of old have always been, but then it is this particular fiscal positioning and the consequences of what we've done in the past that is bringing it. I think that was the point I made earlier.
Yeah.
On your substantive question now,
precisely.
We have found ourselves in this tight hole, and sometimes people need to suffer the consequences of their actions. Really, what will bring us out of the hole? It will take discipline. It will take cutting back some reserve position a bit. It will hurt growth. It will hurt investment in critical sectors. It will help some government policies, which will inure to the long-term benefit of Ghana. But ultimately, if you have a ship on the high sea and it's sinking, no matter how valuable some of the goods in there are, you would have to jettison some to be able to stay afloat and at least
but why should we be sinking such a crucial policy approach and posture that government adopted at the start. Can't we find a way around this? I guess that should be of concern to us because we want to be reliant as a nation.
No, you see, the
I mean,
IMF doesn't
self-reliant,
necessarily,
I should be saying.
the
Yes.
IMF doesn't necessarily oppose growth or development of any nation. Like I said, they only give you the medicine your sickness require, really. The time we are in, we have plunged ourselves into, you know what I think? I thought that the best time to have probably signed on to an IMF program, be it the extended credit facility we are seeking now, or maybe a standby arrangement, was when after the COVID expenditure, we decided to go on the drive of fiscal consolidation. That should have been 2021 and 2022. You see, at the time you were doing it, the market was on your side. You needed to carry them on your side. A program backed by a AAA rated agency and the policy support would have given you credibility and sustained market confidence, which is what you would need to avoid some of the reversals of capital that we saw in 2022. We didn't do that out of arrogance, out of pride, out of whatever it is. I do not know, but we have now come to that realization. Now, if your sickness is malaria, you need to take the malaria drug.
Okay, we'll be taking that pill. We'll be taking that pill, and let's see how it goes by the first quarter of next year. Carrie, thank you. I'll just give 30 seconds to you, Clement, to wrap up for us. Going forward, what's the expectation of Guta? Briefly, 30 seconds.
Yes, what we expect what Guta expect government also to do is to check the rapid expansion of foreigners establishing supermarkets and malls here. What Guta wants governments to do is to let this people who establish malls, deposit whatever imports that they will do over the year to the central bank, so that anytime they want to do that import, then they will go for that money, but not to feed on our scarce that we have.
Right, I'm afraid we've lost all of the time, but we'll definitely have this conversation again. Clement, Courage, Dr. Said, and Yao, thank you for joining us on PM Express. I'm Blessed Sogah. Do log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates for you there.